We're not doing that today. This is just like to give you a little taste of it. But we have workshops and tools and data to understand just how globally or locally minded your target audience is, how globally or locally desirable the category in which you operate is, and what are some initiatives that you can actually take or strategies you can consider to navigate with greater success. So the rule really becomes to define a framework and then find your freedom within that framework. Let's move on. The second point is about earning our way into culture. I think this is a really important piece because the most important thing about earning your way into culture is first understanding what that even means. Like, what do you have to do to earn your way into culture? You can't earn your way into anything that you don't demonstrate a deep empathy and understanding of. So for the sake of this presentation, which we will cover in about 5 minutes from now, we will talk to you about the what, the where, and the how. Very simply put, so it doesn't break the flow. The what is where we've talked about what do you identify as the role your brand should play, perhaps, to enrich the receiving culture. Where we talk about where are some of the most optimal points to engage them. Is there such a thing as a global media plan? Is there such a thing as a global social strategy? Is there such a thing? And then the how is about what are the behaviors that are recognizable of brands that actually do this really well. Are there any examples? So very quickly we'll work our way into that. Number one, the what. You know, like I said, the way to understand culture is to understand it. People have been trying to do this for centuries. We all, in school, whether we went to business school or not, read about Hofstede or read about Maslow, and we read about people that have been trying to understand the cultures and values that unite us as people across the world. And we did our own. When we did this study, we presented a battery of what we call truth statements, and based on how people ranked them, we realized, you know, this comforts me immensely, that people, I have always believed, are more alike than they are different. And you talk to 30,000 people in 29 countries, and you realize that is in fact true. I mean, just something very simple. 77% of people want their children to be happier. I mean, of course you would expect that. I'm thinking, who are those 23% that? I'm like, probably my mother. But, you know, 62% of people don't want to be alone ever in their life. And then, you know, again, we're joking, where do the other 38% people live? Probably in New York. But, you know, jokes aside, but the fact is that people are more alike than they are different. And when you club these into certain values, we came up with these 5 very basic values. We didn't come up with them, they existed, and we felt they applied to us. And there's this little tool we created. The 5 values that unite people across the world are connection, love, discovery, a sense of purpose, wanting to belong to a bigger cause, and success. That's what unites us as people across the world.
Of course, we know that these values, human truths, even though they are shared universally, they are expressed differently from market to market. So when you think about something like connection, the settings that you express connection in are going to be different in each market. And then the things that you have, the things that you do, the ways in which you express that, and the ways in which you actually own things that express your connections. So all of these different spokes on the wheel demonstrates the different ways in which those values are expressed differently in each market. And if you go out into the hallway after we finish our panel this afternoon, you'll see a whole segment of markets and the culture wheels that accompany them. And so you can understand a little bit about the nuances in the ways in which these cultural truths are expressed. But just for now, I'm going to take you through a little pop quiz. This is the where we understand how much you understand global culture bit of the presentation. So our first question, and this is going to be a show of hands, which country's citizens have had the most number of jobs? I'll say the country, you raise your hands. Spain, most number of jobs. UK? Yeah, a little more. And I think it's funny that Spain has like no one answer that. No one. Japan? Nigeria? They don't have jobs, do they? In fact, it's UK, so that was a pretty accurate reading, but Spain is not far behind, so a little surprising that we do not think so. But that's one way in which success is expressed. Which country's citizens expect to live the longest? Let's try that again. Spain? All right, optimistic. UK? No, they have terrible weather and nobody's going to live. They don't want to live long. Japan? Yeah? Long? Yeah? Okay, Nigeria? Surprisingly, Nigerians expect to live the longest. Even though they might be wrong, they still have that very ambitious expectation.
Wow, qué fuerte.
Our last quiz question. Which country's citizens own the most pairs of shoes? Again, another very important expression of success. So, Spain.
Spain.
UK. No. Rainy weather, you can't have good shoes. Japan? Yeah. Okay. Nigeria? No, they don't have shoes either. No. In fact, you're right. Spain comes out. And what's really interesting, so this is just a whole way in which success expressed differently market to market. One thing that I want to point out, when we were building this quiz, it was really hard. What's really interesting about Spain is that we offer 25 different human factor questions. Questions a lot like this, 25 of those. And for nearly all of them, Spain was very average. Neither high nor low. So really coming in as a global average, except when it comes to shoes. So of course brands can tap into these nuances to their advantage. And we're just going to take an example of the way that might be. So of course many of you are familiar with the Priceless platform of MasterCard. And of course behind the Priceless platform is a connections truth. This is really about understanding that experiences are more valuable than things. And of course, this is expressed differently from market to market. And so some of the ways in which that's activated, some of the ways that that's expressed in MasterCard marketing is really interesting. So when we take Priceless in Paris, we sort of see this iconic image of sensual, stylish, romantic love. I mean, this is kind of what you expect from French love, right? Sort of that's sort of dangerous and sort of Jean-Luc Godard. And then when you look at New York, you see this very playful, celebratory, winning, paternal, sort of father and son relationship of connection. It looks like he's the Statue of Liberty, he's greeting his father, they're there in the Yankee Stadium. What could be more iconic about New York? And then when you go to Lima, you have this really amazing connection with the earth. I mean, I think if you read that, it's amazing. So in this audience, everybody can read what is said at the top. But to really feel the roots of the earth of one's blood, that's really an amazing connection with the noble, natural, and primitive order of the universe.
So we've got a little understanding of the what. You know, like I said, there is a beautiful workshop where you can actually play with the wheel and say, hey, what if we were in the business of connection? How would we play a role in people's life? What if we changed our point of view and said, we're in the connection of love, I'm in the business of love, how would we play a role in people's lives? So you get an idea about how that works. So we've got that. We want to give you a very little taste about the where, because once you understand, perhaps this is an idea or an area where I can develop a role for the brand to enrich the culture, where do I activate? Where do I deploy? Because the magic lies in connecting the two. So we talk about the where. Now, question, many clients asked us this. Is there such a thing as global media? And you know, this was very interesting to us. So it took me a while to learn this chart, and I'm still learning, because maths is not my strong point. The way to read this is, these are the number of countries in which that media platform operates and has editions. And these are the number of editions, how many countries they have foreign editions in. So, and the size of the bubble is how many unique visitors come to that media platform in a single day. And I think the statistical relevance of this, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if a country's population has less than 5% access, we don't count that as a country. So these are all countries where more than 5% of people have the access. This exists in those many editions, and those many people come to it. So if you look at it, truly global brands, BBC and the CNN, no surprises, they are in 30 countries with a host of international editions, but they don't have nearly the same amount of visitors as perhaps highly localized media vehicles like Sky News or Cine, which are again not super local because they're not just in one country. So again, there is no magic silver bullet. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to put all my chips on this, or put 90% of my chips on this, and boom, I've got like carpet bombing, everybody knows my message or my story, or I can engage everyone into my conversation. It's become really, really hard. So if that's what's happening with traditional media channels, you think about, well, what's happening with the social global platforms as well? Are there any global social platforms? Now, if you read it, it's the same way of reading this as well. That how many countries that people, you have readers from in each social media channel, and then the percentage of connections that are over 1,000 kilometers radius from where you live. Facebook, in 2009, had almost 5 or 10% connections that were less than, that were more than 1,000 miles of the radius in which people live. So anyone, even in this room, if you have an average of 250 friends, likelihood, according to Facebook statistics, are that most of them will be within 1,000 kilometers of your radius. That number has doubled in 3 years, but it's still below 20%. So again, these are also global but hyperlocal at the same time. And the point there becomes, in this world where more and more clients, marketers, and advertising companies are talking about deflecting budgets and reorienting budgets and redesigning plans to have a more, putting more money and budgets towards social media platforms and digital platforms, it becomes very important to have what we call a localized understanding of the digital landscape. In order to, again, visualize that, because we all like doing that at McCann, and make it a little more entertaining, we thought of it as a digital solar system. So the orbit is really the size of the online population, and then you see the planets, that is how many people are active on these various planets. So think about it as a solar system and how many people live in each planet and engage with each planet. So when you look at Spain, for example, this is very interesting. Small LinkedIn following in a market where it's perhaps safe to assume that social media is best suited for play and entertainment. So again, this becomes quite apparent. If you look at India, you have a very small population that's online, but they're all over everything. It's just like, okay, one air-conditioned lift, everybody's in it. I shouldn't say these things. But, you know, so everybody's everywhere. And then LinkedIn is really, really big because it's a very ambitious culture. Yeah. Okay. Germany, interesting, it has a very tiny Twitter population. Perhaps we believe it's because of a risk-averse culture. So the question here becomes, while this is quite entertaining and illuminating, I think from a marketing point of view, it begs the question, how should we invest in social platforms in different countries, especially if you're a brand like Coca-Cola, or IKEA, Microsoft, and you have something that you want cohesively and uniformly addressed, understood, and engaged with across the world in multiple countries, it might make sense to think about, hey, maybe I should kind of tap into LinkedIn a little bit more here and Instagram a little bit more there.